The speed of light was 10 billion times faster at time 0. Speed of light may have changed over history, the study says. This is August of 2001. We've got the entire article if you'd like to read that. The shocking possibility is the speed of light might change in time during the life of the universe. So I think we do not know that the speed of light has always been consistent. So typically the most common arguments for a great age for the universe are the speed of light, the distance to the stars, and the radiometric decay. Now, it doesn't matter which radiometric decay you use, be it potassium argon, rubidium strontium, lead-208, lead-20, it doesn't matter. They're all based on obvious assumptions. 80% of potassium in a small sample can be removed by distilled water in 4.5 hours. You mentioned skull KNM ER1470. Richard Leakey found this skull in 1972. Before he found it, the KBS Tuff had been dated by many methods at being 212 million years old. When Leakey's famous KNM ER1470 skull was found in 1972 under the KBS Tuff, it really caused quite a ruckus in the paleontological community because you can't have a human skull that old. So they quickly decided, well, we must have misdated the KBS Tuff. Even though it had been dated many times before, including Nature magazine, April 18, 1970, they said the KBS Tuff is 212 to 230 million years old. Richard Leakey finds a relatively normal human skull, and obviously a skull, under the KBS Tuff. Well, they said it can't be, something's wrong here. So they redated the KBS Tuff. It took 10 samples, and now the numbers range from 0.5 to 2.6. That's a 500% error. Your Honor, I don't think they know. We mentioned how the age of the Earth has been inflated down through years, going from 70,000 to now current 4.6 billion. The Earth is getting older, 21 million years per year. Basalt from Mount Etna in Sicily was potassium argon dated at 250,000 years old, yet they knew the lava flow was just shortly before the time of Christ. Hawaiian lava flow, 1801, was potassium argon dated at 1.6 million years old. It's only 200. Mount, however you pronounce that, in Hawaii was 8.5 million years old from a 1959 lava flow. Mount Etna in Sicily, I climbed Mount Etna, dated 700,000 years old. Here's another one from 300,000. The new lava dome in Mount St. Helens, 1980 eruption. The new lava dome was built over the next few years. Lava samples were taken fresh, and they gave ages of anywhere from 0.35 million, that's 350,000, to 2.8 million for lava that is brand new. So when you date a sample of known age, it doesn't work. When you date a sample of unknown age, it is assumed to work. So we have God's word that the world was made in 6 days, about 6,000 years ago. We have God's word that tells us there was no death until Adam sinned. We have human records going back about 5,000 or 6,000 years maximum. We have many examples of geologic features that are simply indicating the universe cannot be billions of years old. Erosion rates of mountains, for instance, indicate that at the current erosion rate, the mountains will erode flat in 14 million years. And yet they tell us we have fossils that are 300 times older than that, still above sea level. They should have been recycled, washed out to sea 300 times at the current rate of erosion that we observe. We observe all sorts of physical factors that tell us, that put limits on the age of the universe, and I think I would just as soon trust God's word until it's proven wrong, as opposed to doubt God's word until it's proven right. So that's my position.
Coexisted, which is accurate? Dr. White, we'll start with you.
All right. A couple of years ago, I visited the Creation Evidences Museum in Glen Rose, Texas, just outside the boundaries of Dinosaur Valley State Park, which includes the bed of the Paluxy River, which is a famous place where dinosaur tracks, including entire trackways, have been found. This is a very famous location in the creationist literature. This museum was set up to demonstrate human footprints and even human trackways that had been found there. And for a while, it was featured in documentaries like The Mysterious Origins of Man and things of that nature. The problem is, I'm confused here again. Recently, the Institute for Creation Research, based out in Southern California, in the San Diego area, issued a report on the human tracks from the Paluxy River, in which they argued that they were not actually human tracks. They were either more or less chance depressions in the rock that happened to look like a track, or in some cases they were produced by humans but not with feet, with chisels. There's a couple of those that appear to be suspicious in that regard. And there's others that appear to be dinosaur tracks that have weathered in an odd way. And this was not the conclusion of the evolutionary establishment. This was John Morris, son of the well-known creationist Henry Morris, who wrote several of the books on that table. So recently they've had to withdraw some of the evidence for dinosaurs and humans walking together. On the other hand, Dr. Carl Baugh, who operates the museum right there, is certainly convinced of their reality. He has it looked to me like a rock, but he told me it was a fossil human finger, and he's got a PhD. Who am I to doubt him? So clearly there is argument on both sides within the creationist camp, and I'm not quite sure what I should teach, other than that I should probably present, the idea that humans and dinosaurs coexisted and that they didn't, and leave the students free to make up their own minds. But that's really all I know on the topic, and I'm sure Dr. Hovind will enlighten you further.
I would be honored to do such a thing.
Wonderful.
It's pretty clear known biological fact that reptiles grow all their life. They simply never stop growing, and there's a long technical reason for why, with the growth plates at the end of the bones, etc. Reptiles grow all their life, so if a reptile were allowed to live to be 800 or 900 years old, it would be gigantic. Okay, the word dinosaur means terrible lizard. That's what the word means, and I believe dinosaurs were giant reptiles in the reptilian family from the pre-flood times when people were living to be 900 years old. Dr. Cabrera, should be a C, here is holding human vertebrae found with dinosaur bones in Peru. Dr. Cabrera also has a lot of interesting evidence on dinosaurs and humans living together based on the Ica stones. I have 3 in my collection in Pensacola, Florida, 3 originals. About 50,000 of these stones have been found. There are 15 in the United States. Dr. Baugh, who you mentioned, has 1. Dennis Swift has 2. These stones clearly depict dinosaurs. The footprints you're talking about from Glen Rose, Texas, I've been there 3 times. The limestone layers there are pretty interesting. When it weathered, it eroded rapidly in 1908 in the flood, a 2-foot layer of limestone was peeled off and moved downstream. About 20 miles, they found the fragments that were peeled off, some pieces as big as a van. Underneath were thousands of dinosaur footprints. So they made Dinosaur Valley State Park. It is still there today. It costs $5 to get in. Well worth going to see. Go in July or August, and you're probably going to have the river dry, and you can walk in the footprints much easier. During the 30s, in the Depression, the sandbags were set up to block off part of the river. It's not a very deep river, normally a couple of feet. And they pumped out areas, and they chiseled out large blocks of tracks to save them in museums. American Museum of Natural History got a large block of tracks and built a dinosaur on top of it. Here's Tom Pendley, the famous photo of him sitting in the dinosaur footprint. Roland Byrd is the one who was in charge of excavating the tracks in 1930. He was an American Field Museum explorer. He said he saw clearly defined human footprints with the dinosaur tracks, 15 to 20-inch long human footprints. Dr. Daughtery was a chiropractor in Glen Rose for 17 years. I met him and talked to him. He spent thousands of hours measuring, documenting all this stuff on human footprints. Knowing, being a chiropractor, he understands a little bit about the biomechanics of walking, and said they are clearly human footprints. That was after his 17 years of research. I don't know if your couple days down there was equivalent to that, but there are thousands of dinosaur footprints found. They're not hard to find. Dinosaur footprints are found everywhere. Back in 1884, Earl Flint, a geologist representing the Peabody Museum, was working in a rock quarry in Nicaragua and found fossilized human tracks 16 to 24 feet below the surface. He describes the whole thing in his book here in 1884. We won't take time to read it all, but there were barefoot as well as well-defined sandal-footed impressions. supposedly over 200,000 years of age. Now, Mr. Flint is all confused because his evolutionary teaching at Harvard University has destroyed, I think, the logical thinking process where you're not allowed to think outside of the evolutionary box, as opposed to, hey, maybe these creatures made these footprints in the flood, okay? He says the sandals appear to have been designed both for comfort and protection. 1882, inmates at Carson City, Nevada, found several human tracks, 18 to 20 inches long, footprints of a giant. Okay, all this is in Earl Flint's testimony here. Here's a photograph of the tracks. You can get the website omniology.com if you want more on that. These are the human tracks with the person standing here crossing a set of dinosaur tracks. The pictures are in the church over there if you want to go look at them. Dr. Daugherty is the one who took these photographs of human footprints. You need to understand there's a catch-22 situation here. We don't need to find human and dinosaur tracks together. If a few dinosaurs are still alive, that would solve the problem completely. No one has ever found human and chicken footprints in the same rock strata together. Does that prove humans and chickens did not live at the same time? No, it probably proves that humans don't normally hang out with chickens. Okay? So I don't think we need to find the footprints together, number one. Number two, I think they have been found nonetheless, okay? Texas Tracks and Artifacts is a book. It's $10, $9.95, $9.50, dealing with all the latest evidence on the human and dinosaur footprints together. I've been there myself and walked in them. That's a casting of one that I have, taken directly out of the river from Glen Rose, Texas. It's a size 24. Good size. People today with a size 24 shoe. That's not the big deal. I mean, it's pretty big, but the footprints have been analyzed. I think they're legitimate. The reason ICR withdrew their support, and I was with John Morris yesterday. He's a good friend of mine. I love ICR and what they do. He wrote a book called Tracking Those Incredible Dinosaurs, and then he withdrew the book from publication, or from sale, because one of the footprints that was real clearly a human footprint at first, when it was first discovered, as it eroded away, it grew 2 more toes and became a 3-toed dinosaur footprint. When the footprint was first found, it was about 8 inches deep. Are you trying to... I got supposed to stand so you can get this on film. It was about 8 inches deep in the rock. As the erosion destroyed it, okay, when it was first discovered, you could actually see the dermal ridges. That's the toes' equivalents of fingerprints, okay? You could see them very clearly on the toes. This was obviously a footprint. But over the first 6 months or so, this begins to erode away once it's exposed, you know. You have a catch-22 situation. If you leave the rock and the footprint where it is, it'll be destroyed by weathering. If you take it out, the skeptics will say, how do we know you got it from the river? So, you know, if you take it out and put it in a museum to preserve it, now they don't believe you. And if you leave it there, it gets destroyed and they don't believe you. Because the bottom line is, they don't want to believe. Doesn't matter what you showed them, okay? So, one of the best footprints that everybody came and witnessed, and lots of folks have testified and written affidavits saying, look, I saw this thing, okay? It was there. As it eroded away, it became a dinosaur footprint, 3-toed dinosaur track. And somebody said, well, maybe the center part that you thought was a human footprint 5 years ago was actually just the pad on the bottom of a dinosaur footprint. We don't know if they had pads or not, but maybe they did. Okay. Well, another obvious explanation might be the human stepped in the same footprint after the dinosaur was there. The mud squeezed in, obscured the outer toes of the dinosaur. As it eroded away, it exposed those 2 toes that were there all along. So it was both footprints all along. I talked to John Morris and I said, Dr. John, why did you withdraw your support of this footprints? I've been there 3 times. I've walked in them. He said, listen, I'm not saying they're not real. And I kind of suspect they are. Dwayne Gish, one of the founders of ICR, 82-year-old, his wife died 2 weeks ago, a very good friend of mine. He writes lots of books on creation evolution. He has been